Get some more folks, but why don't we get started? See, more are coming, even as I speak. Good morning, all. We are really blessed to, look at that, blessed are the women, exceedingly blessed to have Claire with us this morning. I did not know her, so I've just had a chance to meet, but I had an email from another Claire saying, my friend has got a book coming out, and verily it's coming out February 28th. And so we are so fortunate to have her come and speak. And in speaking with her beforehand, she was in divinity school with Claire and Whitney Booth Lockhart, who somehow thinks Georgia is better than Tennessee. And she just needs to get over that and come back where she belongs. Can I get an amen? Amen.
Amen.
There we are. And Claire's also reached out to ask about art, and you and I'll have a conversation about that. That's, I think, something we probably can figure out how to do, but it may take a minute to figure that out. But welcome. We are so glad you're here, and I'm just going to turn it over and let you go ahead and start.
Great.
Oh, one other thing I was going to, well, I'll do that at the end. Never mind.
Okay.
Let you go.
Great. Hi. Okay, so with this size group, I typically want us to be in a circle, but I'm not going to make you do that. Okay, so because apparently we also might have some folks on Zoom. So hi, Zoom people. But welcome, welcome, welcome. So before we get into all the things, knowing who I am, knowing who you are, knowing who the women are, I want us to just take a minute to get settled and let ourselves be here. So one of the ways we can do that is, if it feels comfortable for you, putting both feet on the ground, letting your shoulders fall away from your ears, taking a few deep breaths in through the nose, out through the mouth. Letting yourself be here now. Feeling God's love in you and with you, and trusting that you're exactly where you're meant to be, exactly how you're meant to be there. So as you'll see, this is a simple chorus that accompanies every liturgy of every chapter in my book, which of course we'll be talking more about today. Blessed are the women. And it is a tune that I've been singing to and with my children since they were born, but of course with different words. But then as I was writing this book and really learning more about the women of the Gospels, I see that Elizabeth actually sings a song. So we know Mary's song, right? The Magnificat. That's a very well-known one. But Elizabeth sings a song when Mary visits her and tells her that she's pregnant. And it is, blessed is she, the one who believes. And so this idea of believing women and blessing us in that believing is a really important part that is a through line throughout the book. And so we're going to sing together. I'll sing it first. So singing is the language of the divine feminine. So it helps us get into our whole body instead of just hanging out up here, right? So I'm going to sing this through, and then I'm going to invite us to sing it together. Okay, so blessed is she, the one who believes. Blessed is she, the one who believes. Blessed are the women who believe. Sing with me. Blessed is she, the one who believes. Blessed is she, the one who believes. Blessed are the women who believe. So blessed are the women, naming and reclaiming women's stories from the Gospels. This lovely book that I had the gift of writing is a book, but it's also a song. It is a tribute to the women whose stories long to be told, and it is a celebration of women's beautiful and complex lives. And so many of them, we have known their names from the Gospels forever. So many of them, we haven't known their names, but they absolutely had them and have them. It's just nobody cared to write them down. And so in this book, I have been bold to name the ones who we might not know their names and they weren't written down. So there's Mary and Elizabeth and Anna and Mary Magdalene and Susanna and Joanna, all that were written down. But then there's also Adama, the woman who bleeds and doesn't die. There's also Talia and Asherah, the Canaanite woman who stands and advocates for her daughter. Okay, so we'll get to know them a little bit more. Yes.
Yeah. Studying here, well, and Fokine is the woman in John.
Yes.
So it's really fun to begin to name some of those women who are not.
Yes. Absolutely. Yes. I think I've heard of that when I was connecting with some other folks too. That's beautiful. So really quickly, who am I? I'm Claire McKeever-Burgett. As Guy has already said, I'm dear friends with Claire Harris-Kramer, Whitney Booth Lockard, who you might know from years ago. We were in Divinity School together, both dear, dear friends of mine. I got to stand with Whitney in her wedding, and I got to help Claire give birth to Kate as her doula. So those are extra special connections with them. But yeah, I'm an author of this book. I'm a spiritual leader, a creative contemplative, a liturgist, mother to Wade, who's 8, and Liv, who's 4, yoga, dance, and martial arts instructor. We might move a little bit today. Nothing too much. I like to build bridges between social justice and spirituality. Ordained clergy in the Alliance of Baptist tradition, but we currently worship at an Episcopal church as a family. So a lover, poet, woman, and friend. And who are you? So because we're not in a circle, but I want you to find somebody near you. So groups of 2 or 3, no more than 4. And I want you to introduce yourself to them. Now, you might have known each other forever, and that's okay. Even if you've known each other and known each other's names forever, I still want you to introduce yourself, say your name, and what do you know about how you got your name, okay? Or what do you know about the meaning of your name, okay? So if you're online and you're by yourself or you're with other people, take a minute just to reintroduce yourself to yourself. That can be an important practice too. What do you know about the meaning of your name? What do you know about how you got your name? So an example, Claire. I am Claire, named after my grandmother and great-grandmother, maternal great-grandmother and grandmother, Clara, and I get to be Claire. It means clear and bright. Catherine means pure, that's my middle name. Claire and I share like basically the same name because her name is also Claire Catherine. And then McKeever, which means son of the archer. I believe it means daughter of the archer. And Burgett, which is my husband's name. We both combined our names, hyphenated. And it's some, English, I don't really know what it means. So there you go. But we did combine our names, and both of our children have the mouthful, beautiful hyphenated McKeever-Burgett as well. So that is what I know about the meaning of my name and how I got it. So y'all take a few minutes, and online take a few minutes to talk to each other, introduce yourselves, and then we'll come back. So we can come back. We can come back to the center, pretending we're in a circle. See, this question always gets a lot of conversation. I love it. I love it. So quickly, as you want to, just popcorn, tell me something you learned about someone else's name. What'd you learn about someone? What'd you learn about someone else's name? Just quickly, you can. Love that. Yeah, love that. All right, well, we'll talk, of course, a lot more about names as we go on this morning. So briefly, who are the women that I have written about in this book? So Elizabeth, I understand her as the matron saint of fertility. Mary, the matron saint of womanhood and birth justice. Anna, the matron saint of prophets and old age. Old age is a beautiful thing. Matron Eve, matron saint of questions and forgiveness. Susanna and Salome, matron saints of leadership and love. Adama, matron saint of healing and the earth. Miriam and Mari, matron saints of presence and reproductive justice. Edith, Rachel, Sarah, and Leah, matron saints of embodied prayer and sisterhood. These are the sisters of Jesus. We're going to talk more about them. Ashera and Talia, matron saints of mothers and daughters. And Mary Magdalene, matron saint of storytelling and preaching. So I want to hear from y'all before we kind of get into the reasons I've outlined, but why center and celebrate women? Why is it important? What do you think about it? Keep the world going. We keep the world going. Half the population are women. Some of us are, some of us are. My husband is the cook in our family, so if he goes away, then we're gonna be eating spaghetti and mac and cheese most nights, but. That's right. Yeah. Yeah. So briefly, why center and celebrate, name and reclaim women in our stories from the Gospels and everywhere? Well, first of all, representation matters. So here's some statistics for you. Only 13.5% of US congregations in 2018 to 2019 had a woman as the head or senior clergy person. Or telling it a little differently, only 7.4% of US attendees attend a congregation with a woman as the head or senior clergy person. So women are more likely to tell and preach women's stories. So when we hear women's stories from, by, with, and about women, we're more likely to broaden our understanding of gender dynamics, identity, and equity. Why? It helps us heal from religious trauma. So at least a third of adults living in the United States report having experienced religious trauma. Now, religious trauma results from an event or a series of events or relationships or circumstances within or connected to religious beliefs, okay? Or practices or structures or theologies, right? Beliefs and theologies, kind of the same. And it is experienced by the individual as overwhelming, disruptive, and has lasting adverse effects on their lives. Physical, mental, social, emotional, spiritual well-being. So women suffer disproportionately from religious trauma worldwide due to intersectional issues impacting gender. So things like education or lack of access to it, literacy, sexual abuse and rape, hunger, and more. And additionally, women suffer disproportionately from religious trauma because men still make up the majority of religious and pastoral leadership roles, which often leaves women with limited options for empowered and empathetic help. And that's due to the dominant cultural norms that perpetuate rigid gender roles and rules. See next slide. So it also helps us heal from dominant cultural norms. So the system of patriarchy, right? I'm talking about a system, I'm not talking about individuals, assumes that men are superior to women and that both men and women have specific roles that they must play and therefore rules they must follow. So then when any of us, men, women, queer, differentiate from these norms and or break the rules, we face additional challenges, oppression, inequity, violence, and more, okay? So it harms all of us. The pressure boys and men feel to abide by these set rules leads to higher rates of aggression, disease, substance abuse, and suicidality. And over 1 in 3 women, 35.6% in the United States have experienced rape, physical violence, and or stalking by an intimate partner in their lifetime. So all systems based on domination and control lead to violence and inequity. So I love this quote from Ritu Sharma in Teach a Woman to Fish, Overcoming Poverty Around the Globe. Teach a woman to fish and she'll feed the whole village. I think I see some nods. I think we've experienced this in different ways. When we center and celebrate women, we heal. When women and our stories are at the forefront of our lives, we can begin to heal from these dominant cultural norms that harm us all. And further, when women lead, team collaboration, transformational leadership styles, empathy, honesty, and fairness increase. Personally, why I wrote this book, I mean, all of that absolutely influences this, and I have experienced all of those things and more in my life. Growing up Southern Baptist, growing up in Texas, growing up steeped in the culture of patriarchy. Unfortunately, it is in the oxygen, and all of us must do the work to excavate it from our very bones. But personally, I did it for the women who came before me, for the women who stand beside me, for my children, Wade and Liv, and for all of us. This book is not just for women and those who identify as women. So from the introduction of Blessed Are the Women, I say, these are the stories that I want my children to hear during Advent and on Christmas Eve. On any other ordinary day, I hope they might stumble upon the grace of a liturgy that lends itself to love. These are the stories that I've wanted to hear on Sunday mornings my entire life. They are the stories I kept waiting for someone else to tell until I finally realized they weren't anyone else's but my own and ours. So what would it be like if we heard women's stories every Sunday from the pulpit? What would it be like to observe the first supper just as much as we observe the last? The first supper being Mary feeding Jesus. What women's stories have you always wanted to hear and know from the Bible? And what would it be like for you to write, tell, listen, and learn those stories? So I've left a card for you in your chair that you can take with you with these. You might be sitting on it if you're looking. Oh, if you're on the third row, you don't have it, but there's extra, don't worry. I'll make sure I just did the first 2 rows. But these questions, these are to ponder, these are to let marinate, these are let lead you, guide you for long after this beautiful hour that we get to be together today. And so I wanted you to have them on a card because I want you to keep thinking about them, keep mulling them over, see what answers, what stories, what names arise and come to you. So this is the part where we're gonna get to stand up and move a little bit, okay? Because here's the thing, embodied practice. It is essential for our spiritual practice, like I said, not just to live up here in our heads, right? To move throughout our bodies. And moving the body can often help with that, just like singing can help with that. So nothing major, but I do invite you to stand, give yourself, we have plenty of room in here. In fact, there is a Blessed Are the Women playlist that accompanies this book at the end, and I won't play it for you right now, but it's really good. But I'm just saying, this room like begs me to dance in it. So I invite you to reach your arms out to the side and then up to the sky. And let them fall down. Maybe shake a little bit. And then again, reach up to the sky. You can look up to the sky, gather what you need and bring it here into your heart. And then just maybe sway side to side. If you're worried about what people are thinking, or if they're looking at, they're not. You can close your eyes or find a soft gaze toward the floor. Give yourself some space. And then now as we reach out to the side, just bring a woman who's in your life to mind, to heart. What is her name? Just kind of bring her here in your mind's eye. Bring her here into your heart. Give yourself a little breath, a little movement. Could be someone you know or someone you want to know. And again, reach out and up and into your heart. Let your head say yes and no, both very important words. Say yes again and no again. One more time, shake out those hands, that body, maybe wiggle those feet. Okay, you're invited to sit back. So story as spiritual practice. So when people ask me about how I wrote this book, what my process was, I'm like, it's interesting. It genuinely was a spiritual practice. And what I mean by that is I would sit down and I would ask the women, who are you? What do you want me to know about you? What is your name? What's the story you want me to tell? And it felt like a prayer practice. I would light candles. I was at my kitchen table. Sometimes in the rocking chair with my laptop. on my lap, doing that in the rocking chair. But of course, the poet Mary Oliver says, pay attention, be astonished, and tell about it. In other words, get curious, ask someone their name and their story, write it down and remember. And again, maybe you just need to start with yourself. What's your name? What's your story? And then move out to someone else. So that's what we're going to do. So because we are a smaller group, I wanted to take, so originally I was going to have us like do a writing exercise and all that. And then my parents who live down the street from me said, that feels really intimidating. I don't think anybody wants to write down. So I said, great, thank you for being my test case. I love to write, But here's what, so I mentioned right earlier, Jesus's sisters. So they are, I've written about them. They are mentioned once in like this tiny little line in all 4 synoptic gospels. And God bless the teacher who long ago said, have you ever thought about Jesus's sisters? And I was like, what? What? Jesus had sisters? I'm a sister. I have an older brother. Like what? I mean, I just, because I've never heard, have y'all heard about Jesus's sister? Anybody? Just out of curiosity? Okay. So here, let's read this together. When Jesus had finished these parables, he moved on from there. Coming to his hometown, he began teaching the people in their synagogue, and they were amazed. Where did this man get this wisdom and these miraculous powers? They asked. Isn't this the carpenter's son? Isn't his mother's name Mary, and aren't his brothers James, Joseph, Simon, and Judas? Aren't all his sisters with us? Where then did this man get all these things? So, questions to ponder. And this is story as spiritual practice. So what I'm inviting us to do is, and we're going to kind of take Jesus's sisters in this one little mention, okay, as an example, right? But what I want us to start doing is when we're reading the scriptures, this is an invitation, when someone's mother-in-law is mentioned, right? When the women stood on the edges of the da-da-da. The house was, made up and they were served food. Who was making the house? Who was serving the food? What are their names? What's their story? Who's the mother-in-law? Right? So we're going to practice this together. So here we are, we go, okay, so the brothers are named, his mom's named, but aren't all his sisters with us? Where did this man get all these things? So who are they? Who are Jesus's sisters? These are the questions that we can ask of the text. What are their names? Who and what do they love? What's their favorite food? What do they love doing? What makes them smile and light up? Do they have kids? Are they married? Are they single? Would they rather play all day in the field? So what do they enjoy doing? What drives them crazy? What do they think of their brother Jesus, if at all? So you've already talked with each other, so I know that you know how to do that. So find your person again and just start to talk about Jesus' sisters together and let your imagination go. What would you name them? Who are they? What do they love? Try it out. And if you're at home, you can write these answers down. You ask them. Yes. Yes. No, there's not. I made them up. Yes. I channeled them. Right. So it might be like what, so for those online and anyway, how do you know their names? right? Like that's part of the creative, the spiritual practice is. Got it. No. Thank you. You need the concrete. I know. Okay, I want to bring it back. I want to hear from you. What are your thoughts, questions? What was easy about it? What was weird? What did y'all talk about and imagine with Jesus's sisters? Yes.
Brothers and sisters are working throughout.
Yeah. I don't know Greek. Claire, you know Greek all about. So I'm not a biblical scholar, so I mean, and do not pretend to be. But that would be my first place to check is like, what is like, because in that language you would know, like, is this the familial kind of, is it meant for both? So what I have done, like, so the practice of midrash, which comes from our Jewish siblings, like, right, is what is the story beyond the story? What's the, and so it's really a creative kind of nonfiction practice. And so what I have done is take, that it's literal sisters. That's also like historically and sort of knowing about Jewish families, probably he had a lot of siblings. Like if he has 4 brothers that are named, then like I was just sort of going, I'm sure he has like 4 sisters who are named. But again, it is creative nonfiction, midrash, like practice, spiritual practice from that. It's all imagination. And what I'm trying to do is show how we can be imaginative about the stories that we've been given. Yeah. So I don't know that that's like exactly their names. Like there's nowhere, like, again, they weren't written down. Like we know the brothers' names, right? But like, I imagined what would his sister's names be, So do what? Oh, tell me, say more. Oh. Oh. I have no idea. I have no idea. Could be. That'd be an interesting story to talk about. Who was he married to? What was her name? Yeah. Yeah. I love that. So what else? What other curiosities, imagination? Yes. Ooh, tell me. Oh, come on. Mhm. Uh-huh.
Straight arrow. And then Lydia was, what was Lydia?
Mm.
Yeah, and then we had Josie, and Josie was the big,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
yeah, so, wow, they all had their, she was an archer, yeah.
Oh, come on. Mhm. Wonderful. I love that. Did any of them think Jesus was annoying? Yeah. Say all of the sisters in the room. Guy.
They all.
Yes, that's right. That's right. And yes, I think I said this already, but I am a younger sister. I have an older brother. So this one, really hit close to home for me. Anything from this side of the room? Y'all are holding it down. I love it. Hmm. Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I do have a chapter on Mary Magdalene. She's the final chapter of the book before the epilogue. And again, want to be very clear. I do not pretend to be a biblical scholar or a historian or a herstory. I am a creative nonfiction writer. I am a liturgist. I am a homiletician, like I preach. And so there is, this is an invitation to free ourselves a little bit, if we can, right? From the need to kind of have this idea of fact, and invite ourselves into the practice of imagination, of story imagination as spiritual practice, okay? All of that is so important. And yes, I have read it, and yes, so all of that. And where I enter this place is telling the stories, and unearthing them from my own life, from our lives, from the Gospels, of course, because, as I said earlier, these are the stories I always wanted to hear and never did. And so all to say, there's some really beautiful and important work being done about Mary Magdalene in particular, right now, that is so important. And as I have imagined her in this book, and that I want y'all to read, she is the dear, dear friend of Jesus and his equal. And then, as I said earlier, the matron saint of storytelling and preaching. Without her, we don't really have a whole thing called Christianity. So in this particular story, and I just chose this one because it is just it's a great example of like one little tiny mention, like literally one. And then it's like, wait, what? Hold on, hold the phone. Give me a second. And so I want us to pause when we're reading these stories. And again, a mother-in-law, a daughter, a sister. So one of the stories I write, Miriam and Mari, I have been bold to name them. They're not named in the text, but is Jairus's daughter, who Jesus goes and brings back to life. And there's like this one mention that the mother is there. Okay. She's there, the mother's there. And so I've written their story, and I've written her story as the mother who's like with her daughter who's dying. I mean, my gosh. And so, yeah. And Jairus, of course, is like, I'm going to go find this holy man and I'm going to bring him back because this is all, I mean, the desperation of parents, like, of course we're going to do that. Of course we're going to find healing for our daughter. But who stays with the daughter? Well, the mom. So again, I want you to read it, but as I have imagined Edith and Rachel and Sarah and Leah's story, these questions: where'd the man get this wisdom and these miraculous powers? Where did the man get all these things? He gets them from his sisters and his mom, who follow the God of love. And so he learned, this is how I have imagined it, he learns his prayer practice, he learns his spiritual practice. So this is long before Jesus goes out into his public ministry. This is when Jesus is still at home, learning carpentry with Joseph, and his mom, Mary, who taught him how to pray, and his sisters, who she's also teaching how to pray in an embodied practice, get up early every morning and they watch the sunrise and they pray this morning prayer practice. And Jesus starts to join them. And that's how I've imagined it. And I truly believe that when we follow the women, we find Jesus there following them too. It's what I believe. It's what's in the stories. And so I invite us to continue to look for those women and to find Jesus there with them. So we've already kind of gotten here, but here's what I'm going to open this up, and I want y'all to ask me questions. Again, most of the time I'm going to say, what do you think? We all get to be learners together. But what came up for you while engaging this exercise? What's bugging you about it? What curiosities do you have? And then what curiosities do you have in general about the women, about this practice, about what I'm inviting us to engage and do?
It's very different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. 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 Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. I think it's often easy for us to think of Jesus as sort of this isolated, you know, other than worldly, he's an interesting thing, but um, yeah, he had a mom. She gave birth to him. I mean, he came in, I mean, if that's what he came into the world like all the rest of us have and did and do. And he had a family, as we know. And so for me, I got to know Jesus differently through this book, as you would imagine, and seeing him and talking with him and imagining with him through these women's stories was just revolutionary, really, for me. And helped me not just see him as this like set apart, kind of otherworldly figure, but like a real person who was connected and who could drive people crazy and who could, but also say really beautiful things and live them, right? But say those beautiful things and live them because of his mother, because of his sisters, because of the people and the women who were joining him in his work. So yes. Yeah. Yes. Yes. Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Mhm. Yes. Uh, mhm. Yeah. Yeah. So it reminded you of this experience you had in Africa with women, and you were in the circle with women because y'all could only see each other's faces as women together, correct? Yes, right. Joy, they dressed you, adorned you in the kind of traditional wedding garb because you were going to this wedding. And so yeah, communal celebratory practice. Yeah. Mm, right. Yeah. 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 So different cultural practices that you got to be a part of and or yeah, yeah, it could have. Um, well, I want to be mindful of our time, and I want to just say thank you for being here and for being present. So our prayers on Sunday must hold meaning and make a difference in our lives on Monday, okay? So this is a huge part of the book. So every chapter in the book is connected to a public witness section that is a modern day woman-led nonprofit that is doing the work of love and justice, right? Because if all we're doing is praying about it and it's not changing our lives and the rest of the week, then I don't really know what's the point. So some opportunities this week and in the weeks ahead. And of course, some of them are connected to me and connected to this book and this work that I get to join. I want to be really clear. I'm not the first that is doing this work. I get to join it, right? Women have been circling up, particularly women of color, and telling their stories and living in their power and their beauty forever, okay? And I get to join this, and I am grateful for it. And so giving to a woman-led nonprofit this week, there's a typo there. Ask someone close to you to tell you their name and the origins of it. It's a beautiful practice for this week or really any time. Even if you've heard it before, hear it again. You can order Blessed Are the Women, Naming and Reclaiming Women's Stories from the Gospels, and you can join me by attending the Parnassus book launch on February 28th at 6:30 p.m. I'll be in conversation with Sienna Rouse, who is a beautiful poet here in town and is very into Mary Magdalene, and we're gonna have a really fun conversation about that. So do we have time to pray?
Yeah.
Okay. So the prayer of Mary, just like the song Blessed Are the Women, accompanies every liturgy of every chapter in this book. It is inspired, of course, by her song in Luke chapter 1, 46 through 55. and I invite you to pray it with me. O Mother, we glorify you. From the depths of our beings, we rejoice in you, our deliverer. As you show mercy to us, help us show mercy to others. As you honor our bodies, help us honor all other bodies. As you scatter the deceitful and remove tyrants from their thrones, help us work for justice and shalom. Fill the hungry with good things. Show us what is enough. Deliver us from pride into mercy. Deliver us from evil into love. For yours is the birthing room, the power, the vulnerability, the glory, and the love, eternally here, eternally now. Amen. So you have the card because I want to stay connected with you and I want to say thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for so good to have a chance to hear that.